Good evening, peoples. Back at you, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I am doing the Roundhill weekly pairs, the three indexes, the YBTC, the Bitcoin based on IBIT, and that's now paying weekly over the last, I think, 4 payments. And then the monthly on YETH, YETH, which is an Ethereum base, had a nice big payout this monthly. That's still a monthly. All right, let's jump into the data. So we've completed. So anyway, the declaration is 129. So you have to buy on 129. X date is Thursday, January 30th, and you'll be paid this Friday. So the distribution was 25.485.254857. So 25.5 cents on a weekly basis, right? Price being 50.53, down 30 cents. So now it's time to look at the chart. I tried to make the width of these lines a little bigger so you can more easily see. The only purpose of the chart is, you're getting all these weekly pays. So how does that string out over a monthly basis? And as I've said many times, every 3 months is the fifth. Somebody thought I didn't understand that. Yeah, and that's all based on math, right? It averages every third month. Well, sometimes it may go to the fourth month, but then the next one, so it is averaging out over the year to every 3 months. Once in a while, it'll skew off and it'll be a 4 month and then a 2 month, right? But it averages out. And some years it'll just be every third month. So the nuances there don't matter just under, and so far it's worked out just fine. It's just later this year it gets skewed. So your green highlighted are your totals for your monthly bars, right? So this one is January. I'm going by pay date. So even though you got a declaration near the end of December, it pays on 1/3 and then all the other payments, right? So you got to pick one or the other, the declaration month or the pay month. I used to pay month. So going back, you're almost $1 in a 5 month, then you're dropping 88.80, $1.20 with 5 months. And look at this. One of your highest and the highest are both 4 week payers, right? This one had the benefit of some of the year in capital. This had a 1/3 pay that was declared on like 12/27, 12/29, something like that, but it was paid. So overall, this is your highest 5 week payer, but certainly not the high and the third highest payer of all. All right. And this being your XDTE, right? Your S&P 500. Again, for those of you that are new, I just show a weekly change. Since these are paid weekly, how did the underlying index do, right? Up or down? I could do that with the payment and make them, red or green based on how they did on the previous week, but I think you can see those much easier. Okay. And then the yield is based on what kind of yield you'd be getting over 52 weeks with this kind of pay. All right. So now you've seen XDTE, not a big payment. I mean, clearly we've had a 36, 33, 60 again the year in. This was that example of this one fell in December, the big 60 and 64, but 33 was reasonable and that was paid on 1/3. That's why you have 5 payments, 131 through 1/3. All right, let's go down to QDTE, our NASDAQ oriented, NASDAQ 100. So we had a distribution of almost 19 cents, down. Yeah, you had another 18.2 there. But look, this was a 29 and your big 80s were in December, return of capital focused, right? So remember that for the next year, right? When you want to be in that. Um, so here's your January month. Let's go take a look and see how that compares So your price is down, and these are almost the same for every index. If you look, if it goes green to red, it's almost the same. Once in a while, you have an outlier. The Russell will do better. The Russell will be the red one, the other one's green. You know, the small cap, they're just slight differences. So on this chart, we have less amount of pays, right? This fund hasn't existed as long. But you have the same kind of thing with this year-end capital. Now it'll be interesting if you had a year-end in 2025, how does it compare to 2024? So this one's a little unfair, just like this would be, right? This big outlier, this one was truly earned. This is a bit of an outlier, right? Now some of these funds pay up semi-annually. They do more of the return of capital. All right, so here's what we have here. We have $1.20. You know, you'd expect your fives to pay more than your fours, all other things being equal. Then we had a 5 week jump up and pay $1.77, but then we had a 4 week pay that. They both dropped back here. Then this 5 week went under a dollar for the month, which you can see is a low liar, right? And then the big end of year return of capital, right? Only four payments, but two of those were big, big payments. And then now you're back in your 5 week, right? So there's not a lot. I haven't done my chart on the Russell. So let's make sure I covered everything with QDTE. So you saw the 18.8, right? You saw the monthly 24% yield. I do a summary, don't worry, on this, on how these compare and what's the total return and all of that. So here's your Russell. Russell paid 21.5 cents, 27.27 yield, and down. All of them had a bigger month last month, or sorry, last week was an up week and this week was a down week, right? Again, these guys are on Wednesdays, so you have to compare for the Wednesday to Wednesday. It's not a true Monday to Friday week comparison. All right. So instead, I will do the chart, but here's something for you. You had a 5 weeker at $1.53 in the beginning. Then you had a 4 week at $1.33. It dropped in December to $1.19. Now remember, their return of capital, they're a new fund, right? So they had October, November, and December. They didn't have time to accumulate a lot of money that wasn't paid out. So they didn't have that big, huge. They did have a 1231 declare, and it was 59 cents. That appears to be the biggest, a little bit of that. But that one was paid on 1/3. So if anything, that's showing here because I'm counting pay date. All right, guys. So let's go sum all this up. Oh, and then there's nothing that happened in XPay, but I cover this. It's just its pay dates don't map up, right? It's not until 2/12. The last one was 1/7. They tell you ahead of time of what they're going to pay. I like it. Good fun altogether. Okay. So let's go over and cover the two. Well, actually, let me do the summary and then I'll go to YBTC and YETH, the Ethereum. All right, so here they are summed up with all the current data. So your XDTE based on the S&P 500 is more stable, got a much bigger base, right? But so you have 1157 in dividends. They both, this is a good comparison, have been the 328 days. All right, so that to annualize them, I use that math. So 11, you can see that dividend returned alone over the 328 days, XDTE has paid 22.06. But QDTE, the NASDAQ 100 with some of the AI and the higher flyers, is up at 30.19. So about 8+% higher getting paid. How do they look at the end of the year? I always emphasize this, and then we'll go to Russell. Okay. You actually have a higher total return in XDTE than you do in QDTE. Why, Bruce? Well, because if you bought, again, I know some of you are good at picking times. I've been a timing buyer much of my life, but a lot of people can't do that. So the best thing you can do is just buy a little every month, or DCA, or when you see blood in the street, buy more. You know, that Wall Street saying. So you have to force yourself to buy when it's beaten up so that your average price comes down. All right. Worst thing you can do is have a bunch of money, throw it all in at a price, and not know whether you picked a high or a low. And if it's at an all-time high or close, you probably can see lower prices ahead at some point. All right. So inception price 50, that's why 52, 50, 46. You're at 50, 53 here on the close on 28. So you've only lost, you lost 3.68, and when you go from the 328 days and make it 365, it's a 4%. So your 24 dividend annualized, which has been 22, okay, drops 4% to 20. But over here, you certainly got a higher distribution, right? 30 your dividend return. Annualize that, it jumps to 33. You got over a 9% delta. But guess what? You got an 11% plus almost 12% delta here. So you outperform. Now, again, I give you guys credit that say, Bruce, okay, they're close enough. I like that yield coming in. I can do more with it. Maybe I use some of that to buy more, dividend reinvested. So as long as they're reasonable, if this was 35 and this was 10, that logic doesn't fly, right? Even if this paid twice as much to me, that's too big a delta. This is close enough, okay? The problem with this distribution being higher, so now it has 141 days. When this thing first came out and was paying, it was like 50, 60, right? So it wasn't practical. It didn't have enough of a base, but it's still winning, okay, over 141 days. I mean, I wish I had the data for the same 328 days, but it didn't exist, right? The fund didn't come out, but the base is getting bigger. Um, that's what your numbers are there. And look at this, 42 is your inception price. 141 days later, it's 4109. Negligible, right? 2%. And when you annualize that, it goes to 5, saying, hey, it's projecting out that base. Maybe it's going to stabilize and not go down. All right, guys. So XPay, about that pays a committed amount ahead of time, and I like it. All right, so let's go to YBTC. And I do have a comparison with YBIT that I just keep running, but I'm going to give YBIT a little bit of credit before I beat it up a lot. I was so positive that YBIT was going to be good and writing the calls and all that. When they chose BITO, they didn't know that BITO was going to pay a big dividend. And I own BITO. I tell this story. So they were getting destroyed because they had a big number to recover and they weren't recovering. They weren't writing their calls to me active enough, right? They say they're active, but I think through the growth and Jay trying to have enough people, that was a problem. But at the same time, Max has come out with so many funds, and I like some of their new direction. They've also gotten off BITO for the most part and gone to IBIT, the underlying, and that's what YBTC uses. So I give them a little bit of credit, but the numbers are the numbers, guys. This came out in 1/18/2024. Again, I know not all of you bought the inception price, right? So it's like Ulti. I bought Ulti when it was really low, and I still own a little bit of Ulti because that fund stabilized. So it's a payer now. And it's not much. My NAV is very minimal, but am I have a lot in that? No, not really. Okay, so 48.54 on 118. Current price is 51.36. That's always a positive, right? When you're ahead of the game. Now, again, maybe 118 was a better position to be in than 422, but the data is the data. Not like this doesn't have a long track record. Okay. This one is 377 days. It's past the year. This one 250 days. That's a pretty substantial base. So, and that gets subtracted, don't worry. So the 5.81 gain, because it's past 365, drops to 562. Okay. But the dividend is nice, right? The dividend returns 50%, but that's over 377 days. So you get a 48.75. So I get a nice total return of 54%. Again, Bitcoin's done well, right? So what's YBIT's excuse? Well, it has a lot of them. But again, YBIT is more or less stabilized. I went out and looked at a chart, and over the last 6 months, it's traded between 12 and 14. 1 month, the middle of that 6 months range, it ran up to 16. But it's back in the lower part of the range. Okay. But look, at at the inception, it was $20.45. I had a lot. I have friends that I advised and commented and worked with a lot in my Discord, and guys were jumping on it. I said, hey, YBIT should be good. I like the income strategy. I love BTC. It just did not work out and has not worked out, although it's gotten more stable. So let's look at that now. Yomax is always known for paying a lot. So they've paid 41.10% versus 53. But when I annualize it, because they only have, why does that say, oh, this should be 282. That's okay. The math is done down here. Um, don't worry about that. All right. Over 282 days owned. All right. So that's what this should say. It's not, I don't believe the math is done there. Okay. So dividend annualized, they have a higher dividend. This is why I say guys that say NAV price doesn't matter. BS, it matters. A small percent, no. Okay. So it is a 53.2. But look at the loss here, right? This has a 5.62 gain. You didn't lose anything. You got to add that, so you're up at 54. Look at this. Now I got to make this positive. Give it the right days, right? It's green now. But you tell me that over this period of time, you had a 54% return, and this is 3, and you want it because it pays 5%, but you're willing to take a 40, what? 49% loss? No, sorry, don't buy that game. Now, again, it's stabilized. So, what's it going to be if you buy in mid 12s? Is Yomax going to be able to pay more than YBTC? Yeah, probably a little bit, but can it be stable? Remember, the higher payments, higher recovery you have to have. All right, guys, enough on that. Here's your 87-cent distribution. I went up and gave you all the summary data, but here's what you were paid. Same thing with all the other. You have to buy tonight, right? Or sorry, tomorrow 129. It depends on your time zone, right? And the X date, Thursday's too late, and you're paid on Friday. Nice distribution, though. Nice, nice. Look at this, 89. Now, these are weeklies, right? So you got to use different math. This was back when it was monthly, but you had that year-end capital return. So it was going monthly, monthly, monthly. Now it's weekly. That's why I denoted the color change. All right, guys. So the final one here is YETH, Ethereum. All right, let's do this before we summarize. All right, so 129, $3.59. Now, please note, this is a monthly pair. Everything else, YBTC has gone to weekly, and all the Russell, Nasdaq 100, and S&P 500 indexes, okay, at Roundhill are weekly, which is what more people like. All right. So a high payment. Look at this, 926 when they came out. They hadn't been out. They came out at 99. Okay, so they are paying nicely. All right. So your dividend annualized. Now this is a younger fund, right? 142 days owned. But you've got a real dividend return of 29.14, and when you take that out to 365, that's a 75% return. Now, if you can win, now granted, this again, maybe this is the right timing. They came out and and then BTC has soared and drug everything else along with it. Ethereum and some of the meme stuff. Okay. So you got a total return of 104. That's Misty Coney, that's up there, the GOAT. Nvidia at times, right? The real goat's been Misty, but Nvidia's challenged clearly. So big, big And when you have a NAV win, you better take that. Now, does that say that BTC doesn't, it's I'm looking 125, 138 if it can get up to like 110 and break out. But if it doesn't, it may go back and visit the 80s. Clearly, it'll visit the 90s if it doesn't break out. The longer something trades sideways, the bigger the next move. So you could hang in this, high 99s, low 100s, and up and down 5 or 10 points, thousands. And in BTC, you're going to eventually, if you do that for 3 or 4 months, you're going to get a big break one way or the other. Sometimes it's hard to tell which way. You're going to run back and maybe test a breakout of 74, or you're going to go up and hit your 138 target quickly, 128, 138, whatever the next peak is, and then you go through a retracement period. So we shall see. All right. So here's the summary. Started at 48. You're currently at, whoops, current price is not that, Bruce. Let me fix that. Current price is 51.38. At least I think that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. So not quite 100%. Sorry about that, guys. Doing so many numbers here and updating these, not trying to make excuses, but bottom line, it's a big number, right? This doesn't change. You got a 75% distribution annualized. Now, you've had 5 monthly payments, right? Your gain and loss annualized is 18%. That's pretty sweet. 7% in reality, but that's over 142 days. So nice, nice, nice. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. That sums up Roundhill. To me, Roundhill is class. Everything they seem to do, they do well. Kudos to them and Dave, their CEO. Just kudos. Okay, guys, that's what I got for Roundhill. Again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great day and rest of the week, or evening and rest of the week. Bye for now.